Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's Eva. We are. Ooh, it got lit up a little. I think if we do this, it gets lighter. We're transitioning from daytime light to the orange mountain lounge. Um, but I'm here for it. I'm fully here for the low lighting. Um, there is construction sound in the background, and I hope that that's not distracting. The whole entire city of Colorado Springs is being like redone underground under the roads. It seems everywhere you go, they're like relaying these like massive orange wires underneath of everything, which I feel like is a really good representation of what's going on, specifically for me right now, maybe for you, probably for you if you're seeing this. I think certainly for the whole world. Um, my work is I think the containers in which it expresses, certainly not the essence of what it is, um, are changing a whole lot. I have struggled with how this is supposed to come through, and I have struggled with thinking that I am limiting it in some way or trying to shove it into containers that I feel like it needs to be in for it to be like understood or purchased or interacted with. But I feel so much like there's so much changing, and it's so much around this divine feminine like resurrection. And I've been working through a lot of identity change. And I wanted to bring up something really cool that happened yesterday when I was recording the voice for the most recent trance, which I called "Collapse of the False World." But there was so much of it that was like community and relational trauma clearing. And right after I like towards the end and after, this whole part from like my pinky to like my elbow had this like nerve feeling. Like it wasn't burning, but it was like just this like more than tingling, just this very like alive nerve feeling. And this is your sort of heart protector, heart small intestine meridian in traditional Chinese medicine. And lots of themes of like sorting the truth from distortion, discernment, boundaries without defensiveness, which we talk about all the time, receiving clarity from the heart without fear. And because it was the left side, this receptive circuitry coming back online, heart field opening, feminine chi, this yin energy really, really starting to flow. And it was like such a powerful physical response. Um, Not that that doesn't happen often, but like it was very, very striking, and it's never really happened in that kind of way. So if those are things that you are going through and sorting through, and you feel yourself sort of dying and rebirthing and letting go and restructuring, and your identity is really changing, I really encourage you to check out the trance meditations, because they're powerful beyond description. But I also do offer pretty detailed descriptions about what I see, sense, and feel as I make them. And the work is difficult to communicate with the language that we've made, which purposefully doesn't honor unity. So I think like really diving into these more expanded tools and technologies in the vocal code, in the light language, in the sound. The sound is the mother, and the sound healing being so important, and the cymatics and the sacred geometries of sound, and the templating of all of it in these higher dimensions that we are really, really, really powerfully extending into now, and really claiming that as our own, claiming that for ourselves, claiming ourselves there. So I'll link that below if you're interested. And I've recategorized them on the website, so it's sort of easier to look and see what you might be interested in, what you're going through at this time. But if you ever have any questions about them, please feel free to email me or leave comments here. For this transmission, I'm so excited to be doing this. I'm so excited to be here and offering this as this is happening. sort of live time last night. Major, what felt like an incredible moment of clarity and breakthrough as I was doing field work last night. So this specific video you're watching right now that I'm making, is for this like deeply transitional phase, this moment of feeling in between selves, and our relationship to ourself, and our relationship to other people, and our relationship in the context of community, in what community really means. And it all really comes down to this relationship we have with the divine, and healing that relationship with the divine, and redefining what we believe the divine is, redefining the role that God plays, what God is, what it means to be one with God, what that inheritance is, what our capabilities are. And so there are some notes that came through that I want to share, but we should just take a nice deep breath, because so much of the notes are have enlightened wisdom through their transmission. So we rest in the field of unity. We intend to know ourselves healed, whole, and safe as we truly are in eternity. We will not accept ideas of littleness, ideas of weakness, ideas of sinfulness, ideas of guilt, of unworthiness. We would know ourselves in the light of the one truth now. So, this first idea that came through is there is no invisible grading system where God is waiting for you to get the right emotional combination so flow can return to your life. The space between the death of the old survival architecture and the stabilization of the new identity is sort of where we find ourselves here in this collective, if you're seeing this. We're dismantling, these sort of stages came through of this identity shift. Dismantling the old, this kind of void space, and then this repatterning space, and then stabilization to external flow. So much, we've been bringing up manifestation here because I see so much stuff that comes through on YouTube, and this idea of like immediate shift and instant shift in your external reality being shifted right now. Our nervous systems don't work that way. We have made our bodies very complicated, and we live in layers and layers and layers and layers of dimension and form and code. And it is not a service to yourself to believe that that's what's happening. Do we exist everywhere because the center of all being is everywhere? Absolutely, most certainly. Are there infinite versions of our lives happening? There are many people who say that that's how the quantum field works. Is that helpful as you are moving through your life as it is now, trying to make sense of what's happening? I don't think so. And I think it doesn't do anything for your nervous system to try to force it into believing something it just doesn't believe without this excavation, this dismantling of a false self. Not laying a desired imaginary like fantasy self on top of this self that needs to heal. The world needs to heal. The world needs healing. Where we sort of maybe find ourselves stuck is this sort of void and repatterning stage where we feel like kind of maybe nothing is happening. But we interpret this as this pause, maybe this silence, as personal error or a personal inherent flaw or a punishment. And we want to move through this today in this session. See, when we try to force ourselves into limitations of patterns of what change should look like, or we live in an infinite field and so we can be shifted right now, I don't think that's really honoring the process of the unraveling. And it leads to a lot more guilt and a lot more dissatisfaction with self if you don't immediately shift into some, fantasy reality. I'm not saying that you can't have what you want. I'm saying there seems to be, from my view, that's not spiritual. Like, that's not spiritual at all. That's something else. Magic. To be spiritual is to develop your relationship to the divine. And I do believe that there is in communication with our highest self, in communication with the Holy Spirit, the flow of inspiration and creative force in the universe, that there is a larger plan, and we do play roles throughout our incarnation, and we have that information available to us. But if we're trying to do something that is out of resonance with what we came here to do and learn and free ourselves from, I think you're gonna follow the resonance, follow the peace, follow what makes you feel at ease. Don't strain to try to force yourself into shifting into something that's kind of missing the point of what the work is for. Believing we are eternally supported so that we can take this time, this silence, this pause, this sort of stepping away from the outside world to reorient ourselves to see that that's coming from our inside, but also that the world is shared. We have a shared mind. We're not here alone, and we don't heal alone. We heal as one or not at all. And so projecting yourself out into some fantasy world where like nothing can touch you anymore, if you have a spiritual calling, is really not the point. So we kind of want to get back to the center of what we're doing it for, and we've talked about that a couple times this week. But something that sort of came through that I liked is this idea that a butterfly isn't failing when it goes to goo, right? A caterpillar goes into its cocoon or a moth, and it turns into goo, right? It completely dissolves. It's no longer the caterpillar. It completely loses its form. It loses form. This is similar now, I'm seeing, to this idea of, in physics, of quantum leaping, or an electron moving to its like next higher orbital away from the nucleus, which is, you don't see it move like an airplane moves through the sky. It goes into the field and then it emerges elsewhere, right? But in that like disappearing, one would not say that electron is failing to be, right? Just like the caterpillar's not failing when it goes to goo to turn into something else. Like, you have to honor your goo process and know that you are not like the goo in which the cocoon in which the caterpillar is held holds the goo in place. That structure came from its own being. And so the structure that holds us when we go to goo is also of our being, because we are a unified being. And like really allowing these sort of metaphors and these different images that come through, let us think about God in different ways. Let us think about the field in different ways, because I think that some of these manifestation teachings really misses the point of the unity of it all. and it is very self-focused, like for the purpose of your own gain, without the context of healing the entire mind, like that we share one life. And if you really want freedom, you want to know yourself free, you can't bypass that, because that's not the point of the work. So we are sort of reorienting ourselves. We've talked a lot about nervous system healing. We talk a lot about the light codes, the light language codes being a whole lot of it being this nervous system rewriting, this capacity. Now, thinking about this receptive circuitry, yeah, I liked that. That came through when I was thinking about the meridians, these energy lines, this receptive, this divine feminine circuitry sort of coming back online, if you will, after eons and eons of time of it being totally suppressed, totally lost to us in conscious memory, but certainly not lost in the field. So we're letting that reorganize. We're letting that emerge from us. But if we have hostility towards ourselves, there's not a safe container. That's a false masculine idea then. Like letting yourself be contained and held by an enlightened masculine structure of the self allows for that feminine reorganizing in safety. Both come from you. You might see different representations of it in your reality that look like manifestations outside of you to be helpful. And to reinforce that idea of unity, I mean, for me personally, I knew I had to return to Pikes Peak because that mountain, in my interpretation of it, has this, I could see it, well, it's behind a snow cloud right now, but it is outside my window. Just the most beautiful, safe, divine masculine consciousness feels like a being I know. It feels like a person I know. I feel incredibly safe here, incredibly safe to do the work. So you might find representations like that, different deities, a person, maybe a partner. So this image comes through. There cannot be a mismatch between trying to receive at the scale of your belief with the capacity of your old trauma. So we're talking about being sort of in this middle state of identity. We can't receive the new to the old structure. So you might feel like things are very quiet, things are not coming through as you want them to, or you envision, or you've seen yet, because this old foundation is still, I think it's fallen. I think it's not falling anymore, but I think this came through a little later. Yes, we'll wait. No, we'll do it now. That this, the you know, if you think about concrete, building a house or whatever, or a sidewalk, anything, that you pour it and then it like takes a second, right? And you can't build on top of it while it's still wet, while it's still setting. You can't build in a sustainable way that the structure's not going to hold while it's still setting. So perhaps you're just in this state of it setting. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean you're being punished. You're just, this is the state of phase that you're in. And we allow nature to have these stages. All of the leaves have fallen off the trees. Are we like, bad job, tree, because you don't have green leaves on anymore? Like, you suck. You're fucking it up. Excuse my French. Like, no, that's not what we think about when we think about bare trees. And we know they're not dead. We know that they're in their cyclical nature. And we are a part of nature here in this incarnation. And so we too have these cyclical sort of spiraling up. The different, you know, parts of the spiral have different phases as we shed old identities. It does not appear to us that we just boom. I mean, if you think about Jesus and the 3 days that it took for him to reemerge, you know, he wasn't like dead and then like psych, you know, like it took time. That also took time for that all to reorganize. So give yourself a break. We're letting go of the belief that fear makes God retract support. Oh my God, my sister, I have a Mac and I could see my texts, and my sister just texted me she wasn't feeling well. She said, well, I'm not dead. Just like the tree. Synchronicity. Let go of the pressure around this. Choose again, but try to take the pain and urgency, anxiety around what fear has produced before, like the evidence of the past, out of it. Like, let that be wiped from your memory. There's too much pressure in the field right now. While you put so much pressure on yourself to sustain a new reality from a foundation that of the new identity that is still setting, you're just making yourself feel like freaking out. Like, it's just, there's no peace there, and peace is the point. Receptivity requires self-trust, not perfection. Timing is not about reward or punishment. It's about stability. So again, this new foundation's being poured, right? It's on the admission of your truth. So that's kind of like being honest with yourself about what you really want. Are you trying to make, like, for example, the bit, like, I've been pretty open about my relationship to this as a business, which feels kind of inorganic to me personally, the way that the manifestation of this work, the way that it wants to come through, has shifted so much over the past 5 years. And before I started offering it to other people, and as I have, and trying to make it all kind of work and fit, And, last night I was in deep conversation with Spirit, talking about what I actually want. What I actually see in my visions is not like a laptop online business, It is this beautiful community. It's like growing food and farming together and working with these neurodivergent children who are bringing so much information to the field. And community, right? And so letting yourself be really honest instead of like letting yourself just try to force yourself into doing something based in an old identity, because that's not what you're really meant to offer, and yourself is guiding yourself. And when you let go of the fear that you're not going to be supported through it, you really give it space to let it actually emerge in the way that it wants to. But you have to be open enough to look at that. So we're letting go of a fear-based exchange based model of divinity. God is not exchanging anything with you. This is the false God dissolving from the world. And we've been talking a lot about money recently on the channel. I think it's very relevant that it's coming through as money fears, because the world as it is now has really replaced God with money, right? I mean, if we think about all of the things that we believe that money, stands for, or what money can get us, like, we've totally replaced the idea of a divinity, of a unity, of an inherent beingness that is providing abundance, that nature would provide abundance, and we've put it in these ridiculous, they're not even pieces of paper anymore, it's just like this idea. So we're opening to true receptivity of the self, of unity in union with God. And we can't truly receive until the belief that everything must be earned dissolves. Nothing real is earned, because nothing real comes from outside of the self. What is mine comes from being. What is mine comes from being. Hi toya kunam, yani toyon sondroati sinchikini. Nothing real is earned. What is mine comes from being. Hiot o kinitiasa, shitayas notroamin, him ditaya korokunin satuya sotai shini hanakaya sondroa oson sitishia, sitrihaya kunoyun sondrui, io kuyutoro iditiatao soncha korokin, simiandrato sociati kianatro arrohiti samsatriatish, Uruintriaso rukinindra sikiti shimao sonsokuas, shinikinatri hinikina unso hini mayandoro hinian sotruayasi, shitayasaya sokuin satru arahaya tohinium natrua isikinatra, yanandro horukunin shitisi kiritao rukun shorro hinim natru osa kiritishini kayas, yandro aun siatratis. And we talk about letting ourselves be undone, but then the process of the undoing is something we punish ourselves for. This must be let go. This is not healthy. Sietokorukina na nashane hini koyonso nom baworuitisi kiara kinandrato sonso ishi kinindrato socorro kinindrato sokina shimia sandrioti. God has not left. God has not abandoned us. Tiata unsum natri kina unso tuim nitrin dish. Don't abandon yourself. Hinandra horro canandriam natrot. Hido corru kinindisum sotos. Shinindro atakinandra tisi. Yorro inim natro iti. Hi orro kanayan sorro inian. Sihi yisini shamayatra. Sanayin satri ki haya konoyun so konaish. Sorro inian natron. Hina yunso kin sarati. Siatha sarata kana yano yuno rohin sati. Hikai siteriti orruiti saya shundroatos. Sorro inandadai nataisi adri ki yo ruin sitayas. Hukini mayon joro istaya nahaya kono rato yin. Sindri shioto rahato sumzaka. Hinianayin siti shingiti atoriti sia, you are not in danger. Hiniandrato soin sotrui kinin shorotokinatri, sitrui soyot, hioritiki orun, hyanayan si, hu anamaturiti siki, yop, tota hinika, shari tisia, yitikina norkinia, sainchiti siki asut, yitisia toratosoy, storronatra kinatum, yantishi kinindria sorrokonatri, Yanaini yorot urkanandra yistatush sikiata kunuin sotruiti shimbriasi sorrohnandru urkunuim satruiti si yara kuruidia tu yanihina yanain saya sotia saya kinia. Shana yasoto shama uru hindara tuya kuyani hinino inia osora hiniantakinatarihin hinitayanatusum satashana sayatuni tayanim doro hinintasi kiria nom ni andrayas ni shininuyosum sakinantishakas hindaratus tietokonat Siotokoinoyun yoptoru kinindriti sion sokoishi. And we talk about this a lot, but what's coming through now is like as this receptivity comes, like real aligned divine receptivity, like divine enlightened feminine energy. Survival architecture of the past sort of fires its alarms at you, and you might be noticing that, and you might be getting hard on yourself because that's what you're noticing. Stress echoes. Remember that love has no opposite. The opposite of love is not fear or hate. Those are illusions. Love has no opposite. Love is the only reality. Love is what God is. Love is what you are. Nothing is more powerful than this. Nothing else has real power. The world is a dream. Nayendoro kunuin sitienda tason jokoni sanza konuru hini tum natruin soyosui shini hyuk hiam natru ruitit ikayas dotoyon dokonatra. This is starting to come through, as relationship to your value. And the value you insist upon needs to be based in that. God is love. God made me as one with itself, and therefore I am love. Love has no opposite. That's what I am. Kaya natuyam nakinit. Yanotua tianjakanatuam zakanainchiaratuyam tatisi. That's it. No compromise, no questioning. I am love. Shikayas tokonayan dakonati sinchitiatat. That's the only thing that's true. Hinindroatis. Let that reorganize your life, but don't start freaking out when it starts to reorganize. And with that, I think we're going to end it here. If you are freaking out, you can always schedule a one-on-one session and we can go deeper into the field. It is always helpful to have someone to walk with who has done it and who continues to do it, and I am here for you should you need it. Proud of everybody, proud of myself, proud of everybody here. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. God bless you.